Hello, my name is Glenn Cassis. I'm a member of the Greater Hartford Alliance of Black School Educators, and we are here this afternoon to speak with Senator McCrory about education in the state of Connecticut. With me are Barbara Smith, member of the organization, Annette Shack, who's another member of the organization, and our Senator McCrory, who is a representative in the Hartford district area. To start off, I'd like to have the Senator speak a little bit about 10 minutes or so, about some of the things that regarding education and what the Education Committee will be looking forward to doing in the next coming legislative session.
Okay. What some of the things that I'm looking to do? Well, first of all, I want to talk about some of the things that I already done, which is important that a lot of people don't know. I am Senator McCrory. I represent Hartford, Bloomfield, and Windsor. I am the chair of the Education Committee in the state of Connecticut, the first black chair they ever had, and not only that, the first educator who's chairing the committee. So therefore, I come with knowledge, practical knowledge, real life experiences when I talk about educational issues. I've been on that committee. I've been in the office for 19 years. I served on that committee for 18 years. So I was sitting around and listening to conversations over 18 years about education in the state of Connecticut. And once I became the chair, there's some of the initiatives that I immediately went to make sure we had change. Everyone knows, all the research shows in education that all children learn better. All children academic levels increase when they're taught by a diverse teaching background. What does that mean? We need to have more black and brown educators in our classroom. That's what the data show. So what I was able to do as chair of the committee is increase the number of black and brown educators over the last 4 years alone by 239 new educators. That's more than every college in the state of Connecticut combined. Previously to that, in the state of Connecticut, we were producing maybe 30 black and brown educators per year in our state universities. We're over 230 over the last 3 years alone. Why is that? Because I implemented programs to increase the number of black and brown teachers in our classrooms. One of them was the TRP program, Teacher Residency Program. What we find in our community, many people go in, if you didn't go into education coming out of undergrad, you wanted to go in there after a few years of working somewhere else. And the problem was that with so many of our young people, and many of us people, couldn't go back and afford to go back and get a master's degree because we made it so difficult for you to get into the field of education. We eliminated that by creating a TRP program, a Teacher's Residency Program, where the individual will get a first year's salary as a teacher, but also get trained, and it only takes about 16 months to become a certified teacher in the state of Connecticut. That program alone has created over 100 and some odd new teachers in our school systems. Another thing that I was proud of is the fact that if you graduate from a school district in Hartford, Bloomfield, Windsor, in the district I represent, and you want to become an educator, I will provide you a $10,000 scholarship a year for 4 years if you come back into your school and your community to become an educator. That way we can protect our future by making sure that we have more young people going to the field of education. So I'm a proud champion of that. Another thing I'm proud champion of, my son just graduated from college. And I'm glad to say that I hope I did influence to the point that now he's going to become an educator. Being a young black male educator in the state of Connecticut, you're almost a unicorn. We pretty much don't exist. Our young people, our men, our young women, and our young men need to see black and brown men in their classrooms because usually they don't ever see them. Right. I became an educator because I had a black male teacher when I was in elementary school, and I had black female teachers, and I had great white teachers. Because I had that diverse teaching population, it encouraged me to go into the field of education. So those are some of the things that I were able to accomplish in my position as the chair of the committee. A couple other things I was able to accomplish as chair of the committee, we put forward policy that said Black and Latino studies had to be taught in our schools. We're the first state in the United States to require that in our schools, and I'm proud of that. Another thing that I was able to accomplish that little people don't talk a lot about is financial literacy. You cannot graduate anymore from a school in the state of Connecticut unless you have a class in financial literacy in our school system. Never been done before. The last thing I'm going to talk to you about what I've already done in the field of education is money. ECS formula, you all know that's the formula that takes how much money each school district gets. It has never been fully funded in the history of the state of Connecticut until this year. That was 150 more additional dollars we put into education. Why? Because you had an advocate who understood education, who's the chair of the committee, who has the relationship to go into the governor's office and explain to them why this is important. So those are some of the things that I already accomplished in my position as a chair of the education committee. As I move forward, I'm going to continue to advocate for those issues and also focus on some other things that's very important. Mental health for our children. Coming off of coming off of COVID, you're dealing with a different child in our classrooms. This is a totally new experience for all our educators. I got 34 years in the system, and I know in the past 2 or 3 years, the child that you have in our classrooms is different from any child that you've seen before. So our teachers have to be prepared to deal with those children. We passed legislation around social and emotional learning to make sure they understand the type of child you're working with as we move forward in the 21st century. So those are some of the things I'm proud of. I want to focus on coding as we move forward. I think that's the next language that our kids need to learn and know when they leave our schools. Other school districts, wealthier school districts, are teaching their children that. We don't have that opportunity in many of our school districts. But when we pass policy at the state level, everyone gets those opportunities. So those are some of the things that I'm proud of, that as a chair of the education committee, that I look forward to continue doing as we move forward.
Great. I'd like to ask Barbara to talk a little bit about what GNASP does and how that perhaps interfaces with what you're doing in terms of the state and what the education committee is doing.
Okay. So GNAPSI is an affiliate of the National Alliance of Black School Educators. It was officially chartered, our affiliate was officially chartered in February 12th in 2000 under the leadership of the late Lou Irvin, a Connecticut educator.
Manchester.
Yeah. Okay. Our mission is promote and facilitate the education of all students, Black and brown students in particular, and to create a forum for the exchange of ideas and strategies, and to identify and develop Black and brown professionals who will assume leadership positions in education. And also we'd like to influence public policy concerning the education of Black and brown students. Okay. The Greater Hartford Alliance of Black School Educators, formerly known as the Greater New England Alliance of Black School Educators, is comprised of individuals representing numerous educational fields, such as those in CREC, former and present superintendents, elementary, middle, and high school educators, higher educators, and private school personnel, administrators, parents, and students. GAHPSI has tried to accomplish its mission with 3 major initiatives, in addition to others. The first is through the Lou Irvin Educational Award. We're seeking to further the higher education opportunities among qualified juniors and seniors of color who are residents of Connecticut and have been accepted into an accredited school of education. It's our desire that through this financial assistance, young people who might not otherwise have been afforded the opportunity might gain advanced educational training. Awards have been given to deserving students for more than 20 years. Our second major initiative has to provide a platform for the exchange of ideas and strategies, as well as improve educational opportunities. We have achieved this through our hosting of conferences, seminars, webinars, workshops, and meetings over the past 11 years to address the often omitted policies and needs of education, of educators, and minority students in the public schools. We try to provide platforms for exchange of ideas, such as our conversation today with Senator McCrory, our forum earlier this year that enabled diverse high school students to share their experiences and views on our educational system, as well as by organizing a book signing for one of our scholarship recipients who recently published a book of young adult fiction. Okay. Our third major initiative has been to support our local school system. We have donated books and supplies to elementary schools, conducted multiple day of service initiatives within local schools to address goal setting and reading with students, and provided coding classes to middle school students. Some of our current plans are to address the reading deficit within an adopted classroom, continue to offer the coding classes within the schools, as well as to continue providing forums to share ideas and strategies with fellow educators, students, and community members.
Okay.
So Annette?
Okay.
Mhm.
Today we have a dedicated public servant who has been working in the Connecticut State Legislature for over 20 years. He's already told you that he is Deputy President Pro Tem of the Senate and Chair of the Education Committee, but he is also Vice Chair of the Energy and Technology Committees. And he's a member of the Appropriations, Banking, Government Administration, and Elections Committee. Senator McCrory is a product of the Hartford Public Schools, and he's also taught in the Hartford Public Schools. He taught at Rawson Elementary School and the Lewis Fox Middle School, where he and his colleague Sadiq Ali founded the Benjamin E. Mays Institute for Boys. Senator McCrory believes in education, that education is a fundamental right for every student, and every student deserves a quality education. As he has already told you, he's worked for funding for our schools and that all students have equal access to educational opportunities. Even this year, he's worked on programs like Education Rising. It's a program that guides young people on the path to teachers' careers. And in the Senate, he's worked on Senate Bill 5 and Senate Bill 380, and recently, which he's talked a little bit about, Senate Bill 5436. All of those involve key educational issues. So over the years, Senator McCrory has been a true friend and supporter of GNAPSI. And to that, Senator McCrory, we say thank you. We truly are grateful for your support throughout the years, right? And we will have some questions, and I will have a question for you.
Okay.
Glenn, if you, I will just give the question now, if you
Yeah,
don't
go ahead.
mind.
Yeah,
Okay.
fine, great.
As you know, our organization's focus is on public education. It has been said that you don't support or believe in public school education, but you only believe in school vouchers. Can you explain this in view of all the monies that this year that you have brought into public education?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to thank GNAPSI for putting this together, but more importantly, I get a lot of questions asked, right? But your organization, you guys did your homework, and you really found out what I actually do by identifying those bill numbers and what those bills actually did. I want to thank you guys for actually doing your homework and knowing your facts, because many times people come to you, ask questions, they have no idea what they're talking about, but you guys did your research. In regards to public education, I'm a product of public education. I believe in public education. There's only, if it wasn't for the history, if you want to go back to the history of public education in this country, if it wasn't for black people, you wouldn't have free public education in this country. After the Civil War, it was black folks and poor white folks who got together in South Carolina, states like that, to fight for public education, because only wealthy landowners got their children educated. So it was on the backs of your ancestors and others who believed that all children should have a public education. That's the reason why we have public education in this country. The second part of that is, there's a conversation about vouchers. We don't have vouchers in the state of Connecticut. There's no voucher program in the state of Connecticut, period. So whoever brought that idea up, they don't know what they're talking about. We don't have a voucher program. I believe in public school education. What separates me from other people, talking heads, I believe in all public education, whether it's your local school where you walked to school or you took the Yale bus to school and everybody met up at their local neighborhood school. I believe in that. That's what I experienced from K through 8. I went to Annie Fisher School. I'll tell you right now, best school in the city of Hartford ever, hands down, best quality education. From there, I transitioned to Fox Middle School. So I believe in your traditional public schools. I believe in magnet schools, which is a function of the Chef versus O'Neill case. I'm sure you all know the reason why we have magnet schools is because of the lawsuit with Chef versus O'Neill. And you know why we had a lawsuit for Chef versus O'Neill is because in Connecticut, after the Brown versus Board education ruling in 1954, Connecticut did nothing to integrate their school systems. Let's be honest of what this really looked like. After 1954, we required everybody in the South to do it, but in Connecticut, we never did anything. So if you lived in Connecticut in 1954, you, anybody else, you went to a segregated school, and you went to a segregated school all the way up until 1992 when it was required to make magnet schools. Another piece of that legislation when we had the Chef versus case was The state said you have to provide other forms of public school options for children. And that's where the charter school movement came into place, where if something wasn't working in your local neighborhood school, if you were going to a local neighborhood school, I say XYZ school, I can call out names because I got all the data, and that school has not properly educated your child for over the past 35 years, and there are many of them, not just in Hartford, but all over the state, they create a program where you can send your child to a charter school. So I believe children should have that choice. Also, technical schools are public schools, and I believe we have Prince Techs and all those vinyl techs are very important for parents to have options. Another program that many of you might be familiar with is what we call Project Concern back in the day, where if you lived in specifically Project Concern was targeted to the north end of Hartford. Because when Project Concern was really started, guess where you can go to, where they say you can get a better quality education? To the south end of Hartford. So after 6th grade, some of my friends left me and went to Naylor. And I'm like, why y'all even go there? Because for Project Concern at the time, you can go over there and they say you can get a better quality education. And we know Project Concern where you're getting bussed out. Now they call it choice program. So that's another function of public school education. So I believe in supporting all four of them. I don't believe in pitting our families against one another just because a mom or dad say, I'm going to try this magnet school option, or I'm going to try this technical school option, I'm going to try this charter school option, or I'm going to just try this neighborhood option. I think the wrong thing the conversation we're having is pointing families against each other because they want to choose what's best for their child. I think parents do everything possible they can do so the children can have a quality education, and they have the right to choose which vehicle they're going to use. Because if you do this, and if you don't do that, you know what we'll do if you put your child in a school district that's not yours? We'll put you in jail. We have laws that prevent you from putting your child in another school district that's not yours. We'll put you in jail for that. So I'm an advocate for true public education.
You spoke.
I hope that explains that to everyone out there who will listen, or more importantly, who want to really know the facts.
You spoke about state funding of school districts and how the formula has been been going on for decades and trying to clear that up. Where are we right now as far as that's concerned?
Good. For the first time in history, when we start legislative session next year, the ECS formula will be fully funded for the first time. What that means, the state's obligation to each school district, they will meet their needs at the state level for what they're responsible for. For every district will get the right amount of money, the exact amount of money, and you know it's based on income and need for every school district in the state of Connecticut for the first time ever. That's how that's where we are. Now, on top of that, you all know that the local municipality is supposed to add their percentage to education also. But for the state level, for the last 6 years, we have increased funding to every school district over the last 6 years in the state of Connecticut.
Will that be sustained throughout the period of time, or is
It's
that
going to be,
no
as long as
sunset?
I'm there, it's going to be there because I'm an advocate for it.
Okay. No sunset or anything like that?
No sunset.
Okay. Good.
Okay. I think another question is that the Education Committee, what are they going to focus on for 24-25?
Wow, that's a good question. So, that's a good question because most people think that, all these ideas just come from me, from the top. It doesn't. I get my ideas from the people in the communities. I get my ideas from parents. I get my ideas from educators. I get my ideas from colleagues. But I also look at data, and I look at what's important. And I think what we will continue to focus on is a piece of legislation that it's funny, a lot of educators not talk, the right to read bill. We have a reading issue in the state of Connecticut. Yes. Do you realize there is not one school district in the state of Connecticut where 80% of their kids in 3rd grade can read on grade level? Not one.
Not one?
Not even our wealthiest school district. Not one. That's a problem, a huge problem. That's just not an urban problem. That's a huge problem. So one of the things that we did as a member of the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus is we wanted to focus on reading. We wanted to make that an issue. So we passed the bill and met with a lot of resistance because a lot of school districts will look at their data and think that they're doing very well. But if you dig down deeper in their data, you will see that people that look like you and look like you and speak a number of languages are at the bottom of the well. So they might say 70% of our kids can read and write, but when I look at the data, I say only 20% of the black kids can read and write, and only 22% of the Hispanic kids can read and write. So what makes you a great school district if you're not accomplishing the needs of all our students? So we put this right to read bill so that our educators can be instructed on how to actually teach our kids how to read, because that's an art in within itself. So we make it a requirement that before you come out a teacher prep program, you know how to teach kids how to read. And by doing that, we'll see a change in the educational levels, or at least at the reading level for all our children. Because we all know you can't learn how to read. You cannot learn anything if you don't know how to read. And that's a key in our community. So I'm going to continue to focus on making sure our children have the right to read. I want to focus on, like I said, coding. That's the next love language that our children need to know as we move forward in a 21st century environment. They have to be focused. They have to be computer literate. They have to understand technology and know how to use it. But more importantly, I need to teach teachers so they know how to use it.
Absolutely.
There you
You
go.
know, with coding, our organization, we presented coding, introduced that at Martin Luther King School this past spring.
That's a
So
great,
it was,
that's a good
and we
thing.
plan to focus on that again.
Good.
Okay. Yes.
Good.
Okay.
And for in regards to Greater Hartford and NAPSI, I've been a member for years.
Absolutely.
Every time y'all call me to pay my dues, I'm gonna pay. But I've been around good NAPSI and great NAPSI for years. I used to go to their conferences. I'm telling you, they're some of the best brains in education. Some of the greatest minds in education when it comes to our community are at these conferences, and you will learn a great deal. I would encourage any educator out there, join this organization. It's worth your weight in gold, and make sure your school district support you if you want to go to those conferences. It's worth your weight in gold.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I have a question. When will the universities be required to put in these courses for the teachers to make sure that they know how to teach reading?
Oh, that's a very good question. We started last year, like 2 years ago, when these teacher prep programs require the ability to use their skill set. So it's already been started. It's been about a couple years ago. And even those people who are coming from our non-traditional backgrounds and getting into the field, as you like myself, I didn't go to school to become a teacher.
Okay.
My background was in economics. I have an economics undergraduate degree and a master's in business administration. But I went back and got certified after 1 year working in the private sector because I knew that was not my life. That's not what I wanted to do. I went back in the middle school, Fox Middle School, right there on Blue Hills, Albany Avenue, where I used to be a student. I went back there when I was getting my master's degree in substitute taught, and I found I loved it. It was a calling. For a lot of educators, teaching is a calling. So I found that to be great, and I've been there ever since. I've been there for 34. I've been an educator for 34 years.
Oh, okay.
Just in the area of state funding again, as you know, districts like Hartford are having a real tough time meeting their budget needs coming up. What do you think can happen? What will the state be able to do to help districts like Hartford or Bridgeport or Waterbury and those places?
Yeah, that's a very good question. One, about a few months ago, there was a big headline, 400 layoff positions like that. Yeah. You got to be careful when you read these headlines. And what you have a pie in the sky, this is what everything, if I can get everything I want, this is what it will be. And if I don't get it, then it looks like I'm losing 400 people. I personally have a relationship with the superintendent. We work together. She was a principal. I was assistant principal in the school for 4 years. So I know her, understand her commitment. We have since then, that has been eliminated. There is no 400 losses before. But one of the things the state did was commence a Blue Ribbon Panel to help school districts like Hartford make sure they are using the dollars that they're getting, using it appropriately, so they have the supports in place for our children. So that Blue Ribbon Committee will work hand in hand with the city of Hartford to focus some of the areas around financing. But also a bigger concern is, because of this Chef versus Neil case, the demographics in the state of Kevin has changed tremendously. It's not what it was 20 years ago when we had these issues. A lot of the outer ring communities outside of Hartford are just as diverse as the city of Hartford nowadays. So it's, at the end of the day, the reality is we don't have enough white students to come into these magnet schools and fill them no more. And therefore, they're losing spaces for kids who could go to them right in their neighborhood. The other reality is our school population is decreasing. And the reality is you're going to have some school closures, not just in Hartford, but in many areas. That's a conversation we need to really have and focus on. It might be a burden to some, but it's an opportunity to others to create opportunities that when you have this business. And lastly, I want to say, 54% of the students in the state of Connecticut are black and brown now. They're children of color. 54% of them, okay? So that changes the conversation around education. That changes the conversation around funding. That's changed a whole lot of conversation. And I'm glad to be at the head of it, advocating for those who need it the most.
Okay. All right.
So,
You got another question?
yeah, just one other question. Some school districts don't have, reading is an important and essential skill that all the students have to have. Some schools or districts do not have reading consultants or specialized people to help teachers to implement the reading. Is that something that you have addressed or think about addressing?
Again, that's why we need to make sure those, when they come out of these teacher prep programs, they have the skill sets to teach our children how to read. You don't have a lot. You're right. A lot of school districts, I would think that every school district will think that reading is important. I will hope that they think that is important. But the data shows we're slipping, and we're slipping at a fast rate. If we don't do something to turn this around, we're going to have a problem. There's 90,000 jobs out there, they say, in the state of Connecticut not filled. You won't be able to fill them if you don't have kids who know how to read, write, and interpret and think. So this crisis is bigger than what a lot of people want to talk about, but we have to make sure that these pre-service programs know how to educate our children, know what works for them, but more importantly, know how to get our kids to want to learn how to read. One of the things that I remember as a child at elementary school, our teachers wouldn't let us fail. They were not going to let us. They had the mentality, attitude, you're going to learn today. That's the mentality they had. We have to get back to that. If we get back to the mentality that you can't leave my classroom unless you understand this, then that will turn things around. So I think we need to provide opportunities for people who have like-minded ideas like that, who are not vested in special interest groups, who want the system to stay the same, because there's a lot of people who are comfortable with the system the way it is. I'm not one of those. So that's why I get met with resistance.
Okay.
And I'm saying it with a smile on my face.
Right.
Because I'm a black and I'm a chair of the education committee, and I can speak the facts. And people know I know the facts.
Oh, right.
Okay? And that makes some people cringe, but it makes some people stand up and shout. And I like the ones that stand up and shout. Next question.
Being that you said that you have a motto on your site that says, lifting as we climb. Tell us a little bit about that.
It means exactly what it says.
Okay.
As we continue to climb, we got to pull our hands back and lift the next person up. That's the mentality I was born. That's part of my DNA. That's part of what my mama and daddy, who came up here from Georgia looking for a better life, they understood that we all can move better. We all lift. As we lift, we continue to climb and support one another. And I've known that many of the educators in the Hartford school system that I've been around, they provide me a great environment to learn. I had some of the best teachers. I've had some of the best teachers personally, and I work with some of the best educators who are committed to making our children work. They were committed. The parent-teacher meeting wasn't on Wednesday in the third week of September. It was at church on Sunday when they saw your mama and you saw your daddy in church. It was in the grocery store you had the PTO meeting, so they ain't have to show up for that meeting on the third Wednesday or every Friday, because that's the mentality. That's the type of environment that I was raised in, and that's the type of environment we need to get back to.
Right.
Lastly, again, we need more diversity in our school systems. And we have to encourage our children to want to become educators. They don't want to become educators because they see what the educators had to go through when they were younger. But I was inspired. Like I said, I had great teachers. I had teachers that put us in check. I had teachers that make us want to learn. I had teachers that gave me an opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., go to New York City to see plays. I love the theater because in 5th grade, Mr. Macklin at Annie Fisher School put us all on a bus and taught us and showed bubbling brown sugar. I remember seeing a playbill. I didn't know what that thing was, but when I was 10, I saw what a playbill looked like. So when I became 30, I was comfortable going to the theater because I had that experience. We need to give kids experiences that they traditionally would not have received. When I was in 3rd grade and 4th grade and 5th grade, they had this program called The Pilot at Annie Fisher. You stayed with your same teacher for 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. Those teachers used to take us up to Maine. I seen a low tide and high tide because I saw it. I saw what low tide was. I saw what high tide was. Because our teachers brought us up there before the school year with the support of our parents to give us those experiences. And some of the things we talk about money, it don't always have to be money that you think that goes in somebody's pocketbook or go in somebody to pay utilities. The resources I want to bring to the school districts to give our kids experiences that they would never have before. I want our kids to go to the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. I think it should be a mandatory trip for every child before they leave school. I will support programs like that, but I'm not in support of doing it, giving money to systems that always just doing the same thing over and over again and getting no better results.
I have another question for you, maybe the last, I'm not sure. We consider education to be a lifelong experience.
Yeah.
Okay. But oftentimes we kind of put a focus on students getting a college education or not at all. What's your feeling about that, being the chair of the education committee?
Man, that's
Where
a
is
great
education?
question. Listen, it's a new day, folks. Everybody can't go to college. Everybody don't want to go to college. Okay? But you know what? One of the things I'm focused on as I go back, I should have talked about this earlier, is we need to put the trades back in our schools. We need to put the trades back in our traditional comprehensive high school. You know how difficult it is to find an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter nowadays, an auto mechanic? It's because we took the trades out back in the early 90s and put all computers in the school and took all the trades that our kids could have learned. Everybody couldn't and wouldn't go to Prince Tech. We need to put the trades back in our schools and give kids another option for life learning, but also a living wage. You can make $40 an hour. Don't you know right now electric boat lifters in down Groton, Connecticut, they're all the way up in Hartford recruiting individuals to work at electric boat, paying them $40 an hour. That's a life that's you can create generational wealth for that. You can do that. We need to focus on our trades and also providing children entrepreneurial skills. I'm working in Bloomfield right now. They have a program right now. They're teaching kids how to be entrepreneurs in high school right now, and it's working. And then once they get out, it's up to people like myself to provide them ability to get access to capital so they can start their business and grow their business. So the reality is, in Connecticut, our community colleges are free. That's a piece of legislation we championed and passed. Think about that. You can get your first 2 years of college paid for free. And then you could transition to a 4-year school. So those are the options that our parents have now because of the leadership with the person that understands education.
Okay.
I have one more question about the last bill that you passed, certification. Just what is that? What happens in certification? I know it's many tiers to it. It's supposed to ease the road to teachers being able to become teachers.
Good question. So the reality is, I like talk. I could talk about all this. The reality is, historically, Connecticut have put so many barriers in place so people that look like you and I can't become certified in the state of Connecticut, and they were unnecessary barriers. They say, "Oh, you got to pass this test. You got to pass that." There's no test that determine whether you can be a great educator or not. There's no test that I can have to pass to say, "Can I work with that parent? Can I work with that community?" So what we have done is not eliminate them. We still have those tests out there, but they will not stop you from getting certified like they have done years before. Now what we realize that we need educators, black, brown, and white ones, because a lot of kids aren't going in the education field. So all those people who fought me for years and years and years when I was on that committee saying, we got to do something about these fake tests that says if you pass it, you're going to be a good teacher. They finally realized we got to remove that barrier. So some of the pieces of legislation that we passed over the years is modifying, changing no requires it, but offering the same, making sure they still have the skill sets they need to be an educator. So it's not just pass or fail this test and you go in our classroom. Let me see what you can do. Let me see you working with our kids for a year. We create apprenticeship programs for teachers. I want, as a principal, I don't care if you can pass a test. I want, if I can get you for a whole year and work in my school for a whole year, and I can dictate whether, and I can go in your classroom and evaluate you, that's a better way of determining whether you're a good teacher or not taking some tests. So we're eliminating those barriers and putting in infrastructure that really determine whether you're a good teacher or not.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Thank you for this conversation. We really appreciate it, and we hope that we're looking forward to a very good legislative session next year, and certainly the impact that you have, all 44 members of your committee will really impact all the students and all the families in the state of Connecticut.
I thank you for giving us the opportunity to have a real honest conversation about education in the state of Connecticut. Honestly, I've been in this position for a long time. I have not sat down with a group of educators who had honest, good questions about where we are in the state of Connecticut. And what I will do once I get back in office, if I'm elected, I'm going to have a public forum on the state of education in Connecticut. And I want GNAPSI to be at that forum speaking this truth to power, because I want to hear it. All right? I promise you that we're going to have a state of education conference or a hearing in the state of Connecticut. And I need to hear your voices in this area. All right?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much.
All right.